And hello everyone, welcome back to another Love2d tutorial. So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to draw shapes, and we're going to do a little bit of movement when it comes to moving the shapes. So let's get started. So for the most part, we're not going to use load or update here. We're mostly just going to use draw. So we can just focus on that. Let's try and draw a rectangle in Lua, which is pretty simple. So it's just love.graphics.rectangle. And here we can specify the type it should be. So you have different ones like line and fill. We'll cover both of these in a second, so let's just say fill for now. And then we can specify the location, and I'm going to explain all of this in a second as well. Now if we were to run this, you'll notice we have a little white square here. And yeah, so let's go look here. What is all of this? First we have the type, fill. So as you can see here, this is like an entire box just white. But if we were to make this, instead of fill, we were to make this line, then now we'll have a outline instead of having a fully filled white square. Then we have our X position, which is 50, so this is the X position. And then our Y position, which is 50, and this is like that. You can remember which one is X and Y by remembering that X is going horizontally and Y is going vertically. And as you know, Y, if we were to put a Y here, it has a thing that goes downwards. So this would kind of represents a Y shape, and that allows you to remember that this section here, up to down, that's Y. So this point right there would be 0Y and 0X. Here would be 50X but 0Y, and here would be 50X, 50Y, and here would be 50Y, 0X. We'll explore this a little bit more in a second. And then here we have the width and the height. So if we were to make this 100, then now the width would be 100. So as you can see here, 100. Let's change the X. So let's make this 10 instead. Like that. Now if we were to run this, you'll notice it's only 10 pixels from the side here, as you can see. And then here's the Y. Let's increase the Y to, let's say, 500. I don't know if that's actually still on the screen. It is. There we go. So there's 500 pixels. So yeah, that's the basics of just drawing a rectangle. You have your X, you have your Y, you have your width, and you have your height. So you can of course make the height something bigger. So if you wanted to make it a little bit larger, you could. You see there. Now as I said before, if we were to make this 0 and then run it again, you'll notice that now it's here because the x-axis, if we go back here, is 0. So it's right there. It's against the wall because it's 0. If we were to make this right here 0 and let's say this 10, let's just close this. Then now, as you can see, it's here at the top because that's the Y index of 0, as you can see. Because remember, Y is going down like that. It has like this little Y symbol. I'll just see if I can try to edit that in. And of course, if we were to make it 0, 0, then it would be against the wall. As you can see here, 0x, 0y, so it's against the wall. Now, before we continue to, let's say, something different, let's try and change the color. Because currently we only have white. What if we wanted to make it a different color? We can do that by saying love.graphics.setColor, and we can make it, let's say, 100. Which would be red, and I'll explain why in a second. So if we were to boot this up, you'll notice a red square now, and not a white square. So this right here uses RGB values. Now, RGB, if you don't know, stands for red, green, blue. And here below we have between 0 and 1. So 0.5 would be fine, for example. So 0.5, that would be halfway. So 0, 0, 0, so if this was all 0, this would be black, because that means there's no red, there's no green, and there's no blue. It's only black, so none of those colors exist. Whereas if we were to make this 1, 1, 1, then this would mean white, because that means all of the red, all of the green, and all of the blue is in here. Now usually you don't really want to figure out colors like this. Oftentimes you'd want to go to your browser and search up color picker. And you'll find something like this. So let's say we wanted a nice greenish color. So let's go here. And then we go like this. Cool. Now you'll notice here we have RGB. We can copy that. And now here, what we can do is we can paste it here. And we can say, divided by 255. And if you do this, then we'll get this greenish color, as you can see right there. We divide it by 255 because by default, usually it's actually 255. So it's a number between 0 and 255. But in Lua, it's a number between 0 and 1. So if we divide it like this, we'll get a value with it. So if we go like this, then we can just say 75 divided by 255. And that gives us 0.29411. So we could have done this, 0.29411. But first of all, this is kind of difficult to read because you can't really tell how much that is. Some people this is pretty simple, but to me it looks a lot more than what it really is. And that's why I just prefer this. So you can choose between using this or this. It will give you the same output. So if we were to run this, we'll still get that same green. If we can just get Love to run. As you see there, we get the same green. So yeah. But what if we wanted to make this black? So 0, 0, 0. You'll notice the background is the same color. So if we wanted to make this the same color as the background is now, we wouldn't be able to see it. So how does one change the background color? Well, it's pretty simple. Now you can either do it here, or you can do it on the onload. So you can change it on the onload, or you can change it on the draw. If you change it here, it's going to do that change every time or every frame. It's going to make that background color the color you set it to every time you call this, every time draw is called. So that's every frame. If you do it on onload, it will do it once, and that's only when it loads up. So for extra performance sake, I would recommend doing it here unless it's part of the game to change the background color. Anyways, we can say love.graphics.set background color, and here we have the same option. So I'm just going to say 0.5, 0.5, and let's maybe say 1. And now if you were to run this, you'll get this purplish color, and then with the black box right there. So that's how I can change the background color. Now let's get back to the actual topic of the video. Let's draw another shape. Let's try and draw a circle this time. So let's go love.graphics.circle. As simple as that. I'm going to make the circle line and not fill, but you can make it fill if that's what you want. I'm going to position it at 100, 100, and I'm going to make the size 50. Now take note, this is the radius, so it's not a width and a height, it's a radius. Meaning it's going to be 50 pixels to the left and 50 pixels to the right, 50 pixels to the top, 50 pixels to the bottom. So it's going to be a pretty big circle, as you can see right there. We can actually move it out a bit more. So let's maybe go 200 or 200. That's an X, and let's make it 500 on the Y. Now if we're done this, as you can see, we get this. So it's a nice circle and whatnot. Now what if we wanted to change the color of this circle? Because we've already set the color, have we not? Well, it's pretty simple. We just copy that line of code and paste it here again. Now we can give it a different color. So let's say 1, 0.7, and 0.1. There we go. Now from this, we get this yellowish color. That's kind of difficult to see, but it is there. So if you want to change the color, you just basically set it here. But take note, this is important that these colors stay the same, because with every frame, it's going to call that again. So if we do this right now, everything's going to be this yellowish color, as you can see, because I commented out this part. So when this code runs again, it's going to set the color, and then when it runs again, it's going to not set the color again, or it is going to set it again, but here, it doesn't change the color back. It just draws, and then it sets the color, but it's already this color, and then it goes here, and it does it again and again. Where with this, every time this runs, it changes the color back to this. This is something that's very important, and you'll notice when we build the games, that this does come in handy to know how this works. I do recommend you play with this, because you'll notice if you comment something out, then this might not work. If you maybe move this to a different location, it might not work. So if we put this set color there, it won't work, as you can see there, because the color is set here. But then we come here and we change the color. Then these two execute, and then we set the color to this, and nothing is redrawn after that. If we were to comment this out, then now everything would be yellow again, even though it's at the end, as you can see there. Very good to note that. So let's draw one more shape, and then I want to show you how to just make something move. So here we can maybe draw an arc. I'm going to make it a line once again, and let's say we need X position and Y position. We can maybe keep this, but maybe make this 250. And in here we need an angle 1 and an angle 2. So I'm going to make 0 and 2. And you'll see what happened in a second. My bad, I forgot to add the radius, because we also need a radius. I'm not going to make it that big, let's make it 20. And now if we do this, as you can see, we have a little thing there. Actually, let's make it a bit bigger, because it is kind of small. So let's go maybe 60. I'm pretty sure that, ooh, not 600. 60 should be good enough. As you can see here, we have like a little cheese shape here. Now let's see what happens if we change one of the arcs to, let's say instead of 2, we make it 5. What will happen? As you can see, we get a little Pac-Man. That's pretty cool. You can maybe make a Pac-Man game with this, because it already draws the arc for you. All you need to do is make this change. So let's see, what if we make this 2? What will happen now? Because what does this arc really do? As you can see, it kind of changes where this and that starts and ends. What if we made both of these 5? What will happen then? Nothing. Because now both of them start and end at the same place. If we were to make this 0, and let's make this 5 again, you'll notice this. So if we wanted to make a Pac-Man, we might want to go 1, 6. I'm pretty sure that should be relatively close to Pac-Man. Relatively close, not quite on it, so let's maybe make this 0 again. And as you can see here, we have a little version of Pac-Man. We might want to make the mouth a bit bigger, so maybe make that 5 and make that 1. As you can see there, now we have a Pac-Man. You can play around with this. This is mostly just kind of playing around to figure out what you want. So you basically give it X, the Y, the radius, and remember the radius is basically from middle to the outer ball. So it's from here to there. That's 60 pixels, that part right there. And that till there, that's also 60 pixels. Now let's try and move Pac-Man. So you'll notice here we have Pac-Man. Let's try and move Pac-Man here forward, because that's what Pac-Man would usually do. It will move forward to eat maybe that little square there. So we can even put that in front of Pac-Man so we can eat it. So let's see here. Let's make this x-axis 600 and 200. I'm pretty sure that should give us what we want. If we go here, you'll notice there's a square for him to eat. If we were to just make it a little bit smaller, so maybe instead of 600, or maybe instead of 100, I mean, we can go to 70 and 70 and run it. Let's see. That's a nice square for it to eat. Okay, now let's make Pac-Man move. So here I'm going to create a little variable, just a table, basic Lua. So we can say Pac-Man, and we can make Pac-Man equal to nothing. You could, of course, go _g.pacman. That will also make it a global, but it's optional. Both of these are considered global. I'm going to do the _g pacman. I'm going to say pacman dot x is equal to, let's say, let's give these x and y values here. So let's say 200, and then pacman dot y is equal to 250. Okay, now we have Pac-Man's two locations. So this is basically the same as saying x and then 200 and y and then 250, and that should be an equal symbol. It's basically the same as saying that. We just split it up into multiple lines, so it's optional if you want to do that. I like splitting it up into multiple lines like this. And in here we can just specify the Pac-Man X and Pac-Man Y. So now Pac-Man X and then Pac-Man Y. Now if we were to run this, everything should still look the same, as you can see there. And let's fill Pac-Man. So let's fill Pac-Man. As you can see now, Pac-Man is nicely filled. Now let's move Pac-Man. So here in update, we can say Pac-Man.x plus equals 1. Let's do that and see what happens. Although that might be a little bit too fast. So let's maybe, and I think this should also be equals Pac-Man.x plus, and then how many? This might be a little fast, we might need to slow it a bit, but let's see. No, it isn't. So as you can see, Pac-Man now moves until it eats this right here. Cool. Now let's make the square disappear once Pac-Man has eaten it. So I'm going to go here and make Pac-Man.eat equal to false. Cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and say _g dot food. I'm just going to say x. I'm not going to create an entire table just for food. I'm going to make it equal to 600. There we go. Now here I'm just going to paste food x here. And now I can say if Pacman.x is more equal to food x, and let's maybe add a little bit just so Pac-Man can move a tiny bit before it actually disappears. So make it maybe 20 pixels. So if Pac-Man X is more equal to this value here, then we want to say Pacman.eat is equal to true. And then here we can say if not Pacman.eat. And still, this is basic Lua. If you do not know what I'm talking about here, you should go watch my tutorial on it. But I'll explain it anyways. So let's first see what happens before I explain it. So here we have a little Pac-Man that's now moving, trying to eat this little square here. Once it gets to it, boop, it disappears because Pac-Man just ate the square. What did we do in this small game program we made? So first we set the color of the background, which doesn't necessarily need to be this. Then we created a Pac-Man table, and that Pac-Man table contained the X of Pac-Man, the Y of Pac-Man, and if Pac-Man has eaten. The Y in this case isn't that important because we didn't change it. The eat is important because if Pac-Man has eaten, meaning if he has eaten that pallet, that will basically make us not draw it. Because if this is true, then this will not execute. Because not means if this is not true, then execute. Otherwise, if this was false, it would be if this is not false. As you can see, doesn't work that good. But you could also have swapped it around and say true, and then here you can make false, and then here you could just say if Pacman.eat. Or you could have actually given it to this food variable here instead. So instead of doing that, we can just say underscore food eaten, and we could have made this false, and then we could have made food eaten equal to true here. And now if we were to, now we can just say food eaten. This will also work perfectly fine. So yeah, that's the basics of that whole part there. If we run this, you'll notice it still works. Yeah, my bad. And just turns out, because there's a global variable, it doesn't really know that too well. So it thinks we're reassigning or we're kind of creating a new variable. So I'm just going to put _g here so it knows we're talking about this variable right here. And this should be not, my bad. Because if it's not eaten, if the food is not eaten, we want to draw that food. So that's what we're doing. So if it's not eaten, we want to draw it. But as soon as it is becoming eaten, then we don't want to draw it because it has been ate or eaten. I don't know how to do that in the previous tense or in past tense. Very weird. And here we just move Pac-Man. Here we check if Pac-Man has accessed that food palette. And in here, we just say if it should be drawn. And in here we draw Pac-Man. Now that's pretty neat. We have basically created our very first game in Love2d. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all again in the next Love2d tutorial.